Are you looking for an insightful walkthrough of the STAAR 2023 ELA test? In this video, I will break down the revising and editing questions so you know the correct answers, correlating TEKS, and rationale explaining why the answer is correct. You can also easily navigate through this video using the chapters. Hi there, I'm Angela from Custom Classroom. Just a quick reminder, I'm not affiliated with TEA or STAAR. As a test prep writer and educator, I'm here to offer my interpretation and insights. Before I break down the test, I want to share some news. I just released a 12-week set of editing and revising warm-ups, and the best part is you can try 1 week for free. These practice questions mimic exactly what your students will see on the STAAR test, ensuring they are fully prepared to ace the exam. Click the link in the description and give it a try today. All right, let's begin looking at the STAAR English II release test from 2023, the editing section. So I skipped here to question 42, which is where the editing section begins. So let's start with the passage. Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Salma has written this paper about a recent trip with her family. Read Salma's paper and think about corrections she should make. When you finish reading, answer the questions that follow. Exploring the Guadalupe Mountains. Last spring, my parents decided to take our family on an epic hike through Guadalupe Mountain National Park in West Texas, on the border of New Mexico. They are always trying to get us out of the house and into nature, and they decided that this trip was a great way to accomplish that goal. With vast blue skies, breathtaking landscapes, and millions of ancient fossils, the Guadalupe Mountains are a picture-perfect scene, a workout, and a geological lesson all rolled into one unforgettable experience. Our excursion began early in the morning before dawn. Leaving El Paso behind, my parents piled me and my sister into our car along with backpacks and snacks. We then will head west on the highway. While my sister slept, I watched the brilliant sun rise in front of us. 2 hours later, the car stopped. My head shot up. I must have dozed off. Rise and shine, girls, exclaimed my dad. Wearing our boots, hats, and sunglasses, and smothered in sunscreen, we walked over to the park's visitor center. Inside, we picked up geology guidebooks and filled our water bottles. We were equipped and ready to make the 8.4-mile hike along the Permian Reef Trail through McKittrick Canyon. A quick glance through the guidebook informed me that the Guadalupe Mountains are actually an ancient reef composed of fossilized sponges, algae, and shells. The reef was formed more than 200 million years ago and stretched across a length of 150 miles with a width of 75 miles. It is hard to believe that a sea once covered such large parts of what is now West Texas and southeastern New Mexico. Then, millions of years ago, a rift opened up, the water eroded the land to expose the reef, and we were left with this natural geological time capsule to explore. The trail was narrow and rocky, and the edges were dotted with many types of desert plants, including prickly pear cactus and red-flowered ocotillo. As we approached the mountain, I could see the small horizontal section that the guidebook referred to as the Lamar limestone. This was once the ancient seafloor. Above them, towering majestically over the canyon, was the Captain Reef, where we would soon stand. Huffing and puffing, I struggled up the dusty trail. I felt like I was melting, and sweat dripped constantly into my eyes. I made my final strides to the top of the ridge where my dad stood and gasped when I lifted my head. This time, it wasn't because I was out of breath. The canyon opened up far beneath us and led out to the end of the world, where it eventually met up with the sky. My mom and sister were close behind. They were equally as speechless and out of breath as I was. When my mom finally spoke, she said, Look at the ground beneath us. We all crouched down and examined the reef rock with its minuscule pores and marbled patterns of fossilized sponges and algae. Looks like a perfect spot for lunch, said my dad. It sure does, I thought, smiling. As I unwrapped a sandwich, I looked out again over the vista before us and knew that this was an experience I would cherish for a long time. So let's look at 42. What change is needed in sentence 3? All right, let's go back to sentence 3. With vast blue skies, breathtaking landscapes, and millions of ancient fossils, the Guadalupe Mountains are a picture-perfect scene, a workout, and a geology lesson all rolled into one unforgettable experience. Okay, that's a wordy one. Let's see what we got to change. Delete the comma after skies. So here in the vast blue skies. Well, the comma after skies is a serial comma, which is used to separate 3 or more elements in a list. So deleting that would create an error. So let's cross that off. B, change are to is. The Guadalupe Mountains is a picture-perfect place. So here changing are to is creating a wrong subject-verb agreement. So let's cross that one off. C, change geology lowercase to geology uppercase. So here, geology is not a proper noun, so we don't need to capitalize that. And D, change unforgettable to unforgettable using an A versus an I. So here, when it's anything with spelling, I like to open up the dictionary and type in the first word and see if it's wrong. It comes back with nothing, so we know that that is incorrect. So let's see if its change is correct. All right, so that comes back with the correct word, so we know that this is the change needed. So 42 is D, and it is labeled as 9DVI, which is spelling. All right, let's look at 43. How should sentence 5 be changed? Let's look back at 5. Leaving El Paso behind, my parents piled me and my sister into our car along with backpacks and snacks. We then will head east on the highway. So should we delete the comma after behind? So leaving El Paso behind. Deleting the comma after this introductory phrase creates a punctuation error, so we need to leave that comma there. B, change me to I. My parents piled I and my sister into the car. So that would create a pronoun error, so we don't want to change that. C, change will head to headed. So we then headed east on the highway. That sounds great. That corrects that verb tense was incorrect there. So let's select that, but keep going. D, change east lowercase to E uppercase. Well, east is not a proper noun, so let's cross that off. Right, so here 43 was C, and it's labeled as 9DII, which is verb tense. All right, 44. What is the correct way to rewrite sentence 7? So let's look back at sentence 7. 2 hours later, the car stopped. My head shot up. I must have dozed off. So let's look at A. 2 hours later, the car stopped and my head shot up, period. I must have dozed off. Well, that sounds pretty good because that is, we're connecting this together with the and then this is its own sentence. So let's check that, but keep going. B, 2 hours later, the car stopped, my head shot up, semicolon, but then I must have dozed off. Well, that first comma splice after stopped is not correct. And the second comma splice after up could be corrected using either a conjunction or the semicolon, but not both of these together. So it's combining too many things. C, the car stopped 2 hours later, period. My head shot up, semicolon, yet I must have dozed off. So here the first comma splice after stopped is fixed correctly, but the second comma splice after up could be either the conjunction or the semicolon, but not both together, so it's overdoing it. And D, the car stopped, my head shot up, it was 2 hours later, and I must have dozed off. So again, this option has 2 comma splices, and then it's missing a comma before the and, so it's not correct. So A was the correct answer here. 44 is labeled 9DI, which is looking at like complete sentences and avoiding fragments or run-ons. All right, 45. What change is needed in sentence 9? All right, let's look at sentence 9. Wearing our boots, hats, and sunglasses and smothered in sunscreen, we walked over to the park's visitor center. So let's look at A first. Change wearing to wear. So wear our boots, hats, sunglasses. All right, so that's the wrong form of the verb wear. We want to keep it wearing. So let's cross that off. B, change smothered to smothered with a U. So here we can just pull up our nifty dictionary and see if smothered is actually wrong. Nope, it is correct. We don't want to change it to the U, so let's cross that one off. All right, C, delete the comma after sunscreen. So here, this comma is part of this introductory phrase, and so we need to keep that there. So let's cross that off. And D, change parks to parks with an apostrophe S, and that would be correct because it's used in a possessive form here. So D is our answer, and 45 is 9DV, which is punctuation. All right, 46. What change should be made in sentence 12? All right, let's take a look at sentence 12. A quick glance through the guidebook informed me that the Guadalupe Mountains are actually an ancient reef composed of, fossilized sponges, algae, and shells. So insert a comma after guidebook. Had a quick glance through the guidebook, comma, informed me. Inserting the comma here is creating a punctuation error. It's not necessary. B, change informed to informing. So a quick glance through the guidebook informing me. Okay, that's the wrong tense of that verb. So we're going to cross that one out. C, delete the colon after composed of. So here we've got Guadalupe Mountains are actually an ancient reef composed of, cutting out that colon. Yes, that's correct because the colon afterward composed of needs to be deleted because it's incorrectly separating the direct object, the fossilized sponge, algae, and shells from the verb, which is composed. So we want to check that one, but let's look at D. Change shells to shell. So sponges, algae, and shell. Shell singular doesn't make sense there. So let's cross that one off. And C is our answer. 46 is labeled as 9DV, which is punctuation. All right, let's look at 47. What change is needed in sentence 19? Let's look back at 19. Above them, towering majestically over the canyon, was the Captain Reef, where we would soon stand. So change them to it. Above it versus above them. So here, this pronoun should refer back to the singular sea floor in the sentence before. It should also be singular. So changing it from them to it corrects this agreement error. So let's select that, but look at the rest. B, delete the comma after canyon. So towering majestically over the canyon. Well, there's a pair of commas here that are working together to set this phrase off, so we can't just delete the one. C, change Captain Reef to lowercase. Well, that is its name. It's proper, so it needs to stay capitalized. So let's cross that off. D, change stand to have stood. The Captain Reef where we would soon have stood. Okay, well, that's the wrong tense of that verb, so let's cross that one off. So A is the correct answer here. 47 is labeled as 9DIII, which is a pronoun correction. So this is the end of this editing section, but if you go on in the English II test here, there's another 5 example editing questions that you can look over. All right, let's look at the STAAR English II release test from 2023. And we're going to specifically focus in here on the revising section. So I skipped to question 31. So let's begin with the passage. Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. Mariko wrote this story about a babysitter who encountered a problem. Read Mariko's paper and look for revisions she needs to make. Then answer the questions that follow. Be prepared. Sophia, who prided herself in always being a prepared babysitter, had a problem. A bit of gray smoke was seeping out of the edges of the oven while it was lurking in the air. Opening the kitchen drawer to grab an oven mitt, Sophia wondered what could possibly have gone wrong. At 5 o'clock sharp, Sophia had appeared at the Atwells' doorstep, babysitting bag slung over her shoulder. Natalie and Owen had rushed to greet her with enthusiastic hugs that had nearly pulled her to the ground. Sophia felt a bit smug about how happy the Atwells' kids were to see her. She always had something new for them to explore or play with. This week, Sophia had planned to make their mom's famous chocolate chip cookies with the kids. Although a 3 and 5-year-old are not exactly helpful in the kitchen, Sophia took it in stride. She dodged Owen's sneaky attempts to add extra salt to the recipe. She interrupted Natalie's consumption of a private pile of chocolate chips. While managing the kids, she'd made what had looked like a perfect dough. Or at least she had thought she had. However, when Sophia looked in the oven, she didn't see anything that resembled a pan of cookies. It looked more like a volcanic eruption. As she grabbed the pan and began to scrape the congealed mess into the sink, the smoke alarm started blaring. Natalie and Owen turned with their hands over their ears to block the shrill sound, who had been watching a movie. How do you turn off the smoke alarm? Sophia wondered aloud. The always prepared babysitter had no idea. Should she call Mr. and Mrs. Atwell, or maybe her mom? Embarrassed by the debacle, Sophia decided to just open the windows and if that would fix the problem. Fortunately, as the smoke dissipated and the noise ceased, the kids went back to their movie and Sophia was finally able to assess the situation. She surveyed the counter wrecked with the expected debris of a child-assisted cookie bake. That's when she saw it, the unopened bag of flour hidden by the empty flour canister. Sophia suddenly remembered that she had added only 1 cup of flour to the recipe and had then gotten distracted by Owen's fist filled with salt and hovering over the bowl. That must have been what happened. Cookies don't turn out as expected when they are lacking a key ingredient. Stowing away this pearl of kitchen experience for later use, Sophia proceeded to tidy the mess as best she could. When the Atwells got home an hour later, she met them at the door, ready to explain the atrocious smell in the house. Fortunately, Miss Atwell turned out to be surprisingly sympathetic, so Sophia nervously told the story. Miss Atwell's eyes twinkled, and she was soon sharing some of her own kitchen disaster stories. Everyone makes mistakes, she said, and some of the best lessons and the best stories come from those times. As Sophia walked home, she reflected on the evening. It is important to come prepared, she thought, but maybe part of being prepared is also being ready for the unexpected. All right, let's start with 31. The meaning of sentence 2 is unclear. Which phrase should replace it in this sentence? So let's look back at 2. A bit of gray smoke was seeping out of the edges of the oven while it was lurking in the air. So we're trying to see if one of these phrases would best clarify it. A strange smell. So while a strange smell was lurking in the air. It with a strange smell clearly describes and adds clarification to the problem Sophia has come across. So that makes a lot of sense. So let's select that one. Let's try B, a problem. While a problem was lurking in the air. Well, there is a problem, but a problem can't really be lurking in the air, and it's not really clarifying the specific problem. So let's cut that one. Something else. While something else was lurking in the air. Well, that also doesn't clarify anything because something else could be anything. All right, D, the smoke. While the smoke was lurking in the air. Well, the sentence begins with the description of smoke seeping out. To say what's lurking in the air, to repeat smoke isn't actually clarifying. Strange smell, A, is the correct answer. 31 is labeled as 9C, which is revising for clarity. All right, 32. What revision, if any, should be made in sentence 11? While managing the kids, she'd made what had looked like a perfect dough. All right, let's look at A. She made it while managing the kids what had looked like a perfect dough. It is making it confusing because we're not sure if she's talking about the dough or the chocolate chips in the previous sentence, so we're going to cut that one off. B, while managing the kids, she had made a dough looking perfect. This phrase just dangling at the end here, looking perfect, creates kind of a clarity error. It's not clear what phrase that this is modifying, so we're going to cross that one off. C, she'd managed the kids while making a dough that had looked like a perfect dough. Technically, there's not really any errors in here, but there's a repeating of this dough, which makes this sentence sound kind of redundant. That's not improving, so we're going to cross that off. So here, no change is really needed. Let's read it just to make sure. While managing the kids, she'd made what had looked like a perfect dough. Okay, so this one's no change. So this is labeled as 9C to correct clarity, but no change was necessary. All right, 33. Sentence 16 needs to be revised. In the box provided, rewrite this sentence in a clear and effective way. So let's look at 16. Natalie and Owen turned around with their hands over their ears to block the shrill sound who had been watching a movie. When we're revising a sentence, a lot of times it's just the order and structure, and we just need to move some things around. So I like to always start by typing the sentence that needs revising first. The sentence here in our box, Natalie and Owen turned around with their hands over their ears to block the shrill sound who had been watching a movie. So really we're needing to take this who had been watching a movie piece and put it sooner in the sentence. So Natalie and Owen, and first we need to know that who had been watching a movie turned around with their hands over their ears to block the shrill sound. So here we just needed to take that chunk and put it so that the sentence flowed more with what was exactly happening. I don't have the exact scoring guide released from TEA on their accepted answers, but in this case, based on my previous knowledge and other practice tests I look at, this is what I think would be an acceptable answer here for 33. 33 is marked as 9C, so again, clarifying a sentence. 34, what revision, if any, is needed in sentence 20? All right, let's look back at sentence 20. Embarrassed by the debacle, Sophia decided to just open the windows and if that would fix the problem. Things missing here, so we got to read to try to clarify. All right, let's look at A first. Embarrassed by the debacle, Sophia decided to just open the windows, foreseeing if that would fix the problem. So here they're trying to fix the problem, but they added in foreseeing, which is the wrong tense of the passage. Let's cross that one off. Embarrassed by the debacle, Sophia decided to just open the windows and see if that would fix the problem. Okay, that one sounds good because the verb see is clarifying what's happening here, and it's the right tense. So let's select that one. C, embarrassed by the debacle, Sophia decided to just fix that problem that would open the windows. They're not really fixing it because they're adding extra things like that problem and that would open the windows. So we're crossing that one off. No change is needed. Well, this one does need fixing because it's not clear. We don't have that verb. So here, B is the correct answer. So 34 is labeled as 9C for clarifying. All right, 35. Mariko wants to use a more effective and descriptive word than wrecked in sentence 22. Which word should replace wrecked in this sentence? All right, let's go to sentence 22. She surveyed the counter wrecked with the expected debris of a child-assisted cookie bake. Wrecked is not quite the best describer here, so let's see what could be a better description. Tangled. That is definitely not helping because usually that's a negative description about how things are interacted or knotted, which doesn't explain this counter, so let's cross that off. Woven. Again, woven implies that things are combined together, so that's not going to help. Confused. Confused is not a great description of like the actually what's going on the counter, so let's cross that one off. Cluttered. Okay, that one sounds much better because to clutter means like scattered objects. It's kind of disordered, so that would be much better describer. So 35 is D, and here it's labeled as 9C, which is clarifying. All right, 36. Which transition word or phrase should be added to the beginning of sentence 26? All right, 26. Cookies don't turn out as expected when they are lacking a key ingredient. So here first she's talking about how to remember what happened, and she figures out that they're missing the ingredients. So that must be what happened. So okay, how are we going to transition into this? Well, the cookies don't turn out. So let's first look at A and see how that sounds. Accidentally, cookies don't turn out as expected. Well, accidentally does describe kind of a mistake, but here it's not logically connecting these two sentences together. For example, cookies don't turn out as expected. Here in the story, there aren't any examples being provided, so that's not relevant. C, apparently, cookies don't turn out as expected. All right, this is a better, more effective transition because it's connecting back to the previous sentence where Sophia is making this kind of like discovery. Apparently, this is what happened. So that one sounds good. D, in the meantime. In the meantime, could really introduce a description of how the cookies baked improperly after she got distracted, but in the sentence before, they're not like describing anything. So that one is also not correct. So here C is the best answer choice. And it is labeled as 9BI, which is structure, and specifically here would be transition words. So that's the end of this revising section. If you want to look at some more English II revising questions, if you go to the next section, there's 5 more here that you can look through. Make sure you don't miss out. Click the link in the description now to get a whole week of my amazing editing and revising warm-ups for free. Don't wait. Grab this incredible opportunity while you can.